I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria. I came from a close-knitted family, even though I came from a poor family. But they gave me education with the instruction that this is the tool that will help me to dig my way out of poverty and ignorance. I came without a dime in my pocket. All I had was big dreams, determination to succeed, and the resilience. So coming from another country gave me that insight to be able to understand and deal with people from different backgrounds.
I was walking into Kroger to pick up a prescription for my mom. Upon approaching the pharmacy, I slipped and fell in some liquid. I went to see my regular doctor, and that is when I knew that there was more going on from that fall. I then called Mr. Olawale, talked to him and let him know what was going on. I could just say that he's very professional and knowledgeable about what he does. He's very passionate about what he does, and he cares about his clients. I felt like I was a part of the Olawale family.
The goal is to make sure that our clients will leave feeling that someone gets them, knowing that someone was able to be the voice for them.
We needed an attorney because we needed somebody who understood the relationship between our case and the law. We had been through 4 different lawyers. We were very desperate. We knew from what we had heard that Emmanuel Olawale was the man, who could take us through that experience and see us through and give us the kind of outcome we were looking for. For him, your case is personal. He gave us hope. He gave us encouragement, and we knew that we had found the right man that would see us through.
Just know that when you're coming through the door, you're coming in through a place where you will be accepted and welcome as family, where you'll be seen as a person. At the Olawale Law Firm, we get you. We understand you. Trust us. Welcome to another episode of Legal Angle with Emmanuel Olawale. My guest today is someone who is a friend and someone who I also consider a mentor who I look up to. Her name is Judge Terry Jamison. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Emmanuel. I'm glad to be with you again. And as always, seeing you as my colleague, classmate, and friend.
Oh, well, thank you. And just for the record, she's currently a judge on the Court of Appeals in Ohio. Before that, she was a judge of the Court of Common Pleas for, is it 7 years before she
Eight
moved
and
on to the
a
Court
half.
of Appeals.
Eight
Yes,
and a half.
yes. We went to law school together, and she was the one that encouraged me to run for judge in 2014. I didn't win the seat, but I won much more. Again, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, can you please tell us more about who Judge Terry Jamison is? And especially, I know you grew up in West Virginia. What
Yeah,
was it like growing up in West Virginia?
my childhood was very similar to all my friends. Grew up in segregated area. The blacks literally lived on the other side of the track from the white community. Started school in an all black school and actually went through busing and desegregation beginning in the second grade. My upbringing was 2-parent household, small home. My brother and sister and I and our parents all lived in a 2-bedroom house. So I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth or a huge benefit of economics. But what we did have was a mother and father that cared about our education and making sure that we knew how to read and knew how to do our multiplication tables, all those things before we ever went to school. So we had security. We had those things that were basic to growing up and education, and didn't have some of the problems that other kids had because our dad was employed. Our mom stayed home until all of us were in school, and then she went to work. So we just had the benefit of having that two-parent household, that security, knowing that when you come home, your parents were there.
So you had that cohesive home life, which became like the foundation for where you are right now.
Yes, and that was critical, and I didn't realize how critical it was until I became a judge on the domestic relations and juvenile court and started to look at the statistics and the data of who was coming through our court.
Hmm. So, what was it like attending Welch High School? What was high school like for you?
Oh, well, high school was, I ran track or was a track team manager. I was a cheerleader. Um, we were required to have a B average or better to be a cheerleader, to be involved in any extracurricular activities. And plus, our parents required a higher GPA to participate in those things. But growing up, a very tight knit community, still a tight knit community because I'm still in contact with a lot of my high school friends. We get on Zooms and we catch up with each other, especially around Christmas, but we talk to each other throughout the year and keep in touch. So it was a very tight, small community. So you knew everybody. And it's been a great opportunity to have lasting friendships that have lasted down through the years.
Thank you. And you've grown up to be a very reputable community leader, or a leader in the community. For people who know you growing up in a while in high school, have you always had this leadership tendency or propensity to lead?
I would say no. I didn't lead in high school. Um, I was more of on the team. Um, I was more focused on. I wanted to get out of high school. I wanted to go to work. Uh, so it was one of those things. I wasn't really focused on going to school after high school. I was really focused on working and taking care of my son and doing those things. I was a single mother after high school, and his dad was in the military, so he was overseas all the time. And so I was focused on making sure I was going to be able to take care of him. And so that led me to going to work immediately after high school, taking a job with the Department of Welfare after passing a civil service exam. And I did that for about 2.5 years. And they started to hire women in the coal mines. So I decided I would leave the state of West Virginia Department of Welfare, and I would take a job working for U.S. Steel in the coal mines. So I did all of the training that I needed to do and passed all the classes I needed to pass so that I could do that. So that's what I did immediately after high school.
Thank you. And what attracted you to the coal mines?
It was pure and simple, the pay. It, there was no thought that you're going to be one of the first women to ever work in the mines. None of that was motivating me. I wanted to make more money, and the mines made more money. I was a member of the United Mine Workers of America, District 17 in West Virginia, worked for U.S. Steel, which was a major employer in McDowell County. And I worked for them until I got laid off at U.S. Steel. And then I went to work for Olga Coal Company over in Coalwood, West Virginia. So um, I was purely motivated by being able to make more money. Had nothing to do with being one of the first women or one of the few women that worked in the mines.
Mm. You've always been trailblazing, even when you were not trying to. So, no,
Yeah, I guess that's true. And and the bad part is, Emmanuel, I didn't document a lot of it. I didn't take pictures if I had known the importance and the relevance. But because coal mining was a way of life, it never crossed my mind that I should document these things.
yeah, I know. Well, I'm glad that you went through that and you live to tell the story. If you can go back to your first day on the job in the mines, what was it like?
My first day in the mines, I was paired with um, Mr. Brogdon, and he ran what we call the roof bolter machine. And the machine drove a piece of rebar into the ceiling through a metal plate that was about 12 by 12 metal plate. And you would pin, it was called pinning the top. So it was how the mine roof was supported. So my first day, I got paired with him, and we're going in and we're doing the roof bolting. And while we were there, we have what we call mountain bumps in West Virginia, and that's where the ground shifts because you've removed so much of the substance underneath. So we're walking through the hallway our first day on the job, and we had a mountain bump, and it squeezes and the coal comes out from the side. So that was my first experience. I was like, I don't know if I'm coming back tomorrow. But because it bumped and it shot the coal out. And he said, yeah, make sure you walk in the middle of the aisles because when we have those mountain bumps, it shoots out at you and you can be injured. So that was my first day on the job, and I didn't know if I was coming back the next day, and I ended up going back the next day
And the next day.
and the next day. Yes.
Yeah. And what was it like for you as a single mom, also going on to raise a child and having to go back to into the mines, a work that is mostly for men, and not just for even any man. It's for those who are really willing to walk close to the earth. It's hard
Well,
work.
it, it it's not as hard as it used to be. You have mining equipment that does a lot of the work, but I was fortunate because even though his father was overseas, my mother and father lived close by. So they always watched my son while I worked. So I didn't have to worry about leaving him with a stranger or any of those things. So it worked out.
So you always have that family support from your upbringing to even going to the work field. How did that source of support inform how you make decision as a judge on the bench, as a domestic court judge that has to do with family dynamics?
Well, I was very empathetic with other family members and people that appeared before the court because I understand how difficult it is and can be when you're the sole support of the household. You're the one that has to do all of the driving to and from all of the activities. You're the one that has to go to the school. And God forbid, when they get in court, you're the one that has to take off from work. And you might have other children. Fortunately, I didn't have other children I had to consider, but you might have to take off from work um, to go to court or to do whatever it is that you have to do. And I was very glad that even though COVID was a negative, that COVID showed us that we could do more through virtual means and provided parents an opportunity to appear virtually so that they weren't worried about points off their job or losing their job because they had to come to court with one child or the other. And God forbid if you had more than one child that was involved in the system, and it would cause you to have to come to court multiple times and put you in jeopardy of losing your livelihood and your way of taking care of your family. So I was grateful, and I'm grateful that they have continued to use virtual means to allow family members to appear.
Thank you. And do you have like a notable moment or a memorable moment that you want to share while you were working in the mines?
Um, Maybe well, I had the first day that was very memorable. But what I liked about working in the mines, just to explain a little bit more, you go in as a probationary employee. And because you're probationary, they make you wear a red hat. You know, we all wear the hard hat, but I had to wear a red hat. That red hat symbolized that I was on probation, that I was new to mining, and that I might need additional help. So the memorable moment for me was when I got to paint my hat from red. You could choose a black or blue. So I chose a baby blue. It was the same color as my VW Beetle. But so I got to change the color of my hat, which symbolized I had made it through probation. I had completed 6 months of underground on the job training. I had completed all of the classwork necessary to become a certified underground miner. So that was a memorable time for me.
Thank you. And how long did you work at the mines? And after you left the mine, what else? What did you do?
Well, I worked in the mining industry for 2.5 to 3 years, and we got laid off. And I stayed laid off for over a year, and I decided I needed to find something to do, um, to be able to continue to take care of myself and my son. So we came to Ohio. So I moved to Ohio in 1983, in the summer of 83. And when I moved here, I didn't have the job skills that I needed to become employed in a more of a white collar world. I come from a blue collar world, didn't even have the clothing for interviews or any of those things. So I had to get new clothing for interviews and had to get some new skills. So I went to the CETA program. The CETA program was a job training program that they were running here in the city of Columbus. And I went to that program. And after completing the program, I learned how to do data entry and key punch. So I did that. It was a comprehensive employment and training act that allowed funding for that job training opportunity. So I qualified, I took the job training and learned how to do data entry and key punch, and I became a Kelly girl. There was a temporary agency called Kelly Temps, and my first job was through the Kelly Temporaries, and they called you a Kelly girl. So I was a Kelly girl. I worked for um, Online Computer Library Center in Dublin, and I worked for Xerox. So I worked for Xerox during the day doing data entry and key punch, and I worked for OCLC in the evening. So it took almost two jobs to be able to make up for the difference in pay. And I still didn't quite make as much as I did working in the mines. But I had the advantage of being a quick study, and the teacher noticed that I was pretty quick, and I had had typing before, so I learned it pretty well. And she referred me to go to these jobs through Kelly Temp. So I did that probably about 6 months or so. And my friend told me about a job being an office manager for a Black owned insurance agent. And I applied and I got that job.
You eventually got your own insurance agent's license.
Yes, I was an office manager for a couple of years. Excuse me. And then I started my own insurance agency, owned and operated a multi line business for 16 years.
Wow. And after that 16 years of running your own insurance agency, you decided to go back to school.
Well, I actually went back to school to finish my undergrad while I was running my business. So I started back in school somewhere around 1997 to finish my undergrad. And I finished my undergrad in about 2.5 years at Franklin University, graduated in August of 2000. So I was taking classes at Columbus State and Franklin, and I accelerated myself through the program because accelerated programs weren't offered then. So I went to Franklin and I got a list of all the classes that I needed to get a business degree. And I took some at Columbus State, some at Franklin, but every class I took, I just checked it off as I went. And before I knew it, I was done with my undergrad.
Yes, and that was in the year 2000.
In 2000, I have a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration with a minor in Human Resources Management.
And after you got your business degree, you decided to go to law school.
Yes, I
Why
went.
that pivot?
Beg your pardon?
Why the pivot to law?
Um, there was a lot of reasons. When I was leaving the insurance industry, they were going through contract negotiation, and you'd get a contract for your commissions. I didn't like the commission contract. I didn't like the changes they were making to the contract, so I decided to leave. Um, but in deciding to leave, I had to come up with something else that I was really going to do, and I really felt led of the Holy Spirit to go to law school. So that is how I actually ended up there. It wasn't a lot of my own decision making, but a lot of what I had learned in the insurance industry did translate over to law school, learning how to review a contract for coverages, learning how to input claims and get claims information and be able to tie those elements of insurance claims into the torts that we had in tort law. So it was a transition, but it had some familiarity.
Thank you. And as a law student, you are not like a traditional law student because you came to law school after you had a career and you were much older than the
Yeah, I was
traditional
about
student.
40.
Yes, and
I
there's this.
was 40, I think, when I started.
So, how was it for you?
I might have been 42, actually. Actually, still have lasting relationships in law school, from law school, friends, but it was a challenge because I was working the entire time. And you know, they recommend that you don't work. But I had a house payment, a car payment, and utilities. So I actually worked my way through law school. I went full time day because I got some scholarship opportunities and I needed to be in full time. So I went full time day and I worked nights. So it was a challenge. And then because I was older, being able to think as quickly and being able to remember as much. And secondly, not being all that familiar with creating documents and how to create an outline and all of those things because I had never used an outline. That wasn't anything that I used as a study guide. So learning how to use these things was also a challenge.
Thank you. But you survived it, and here we
I
are.
survived.
Yes.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yes. And after law school, you started your career working as a public defender.
Yes. Well, I became an intern for the public defender's office while I was in law school. I had three key um, intern and externship experiences that I felt were part of the groundwork for my career. One, I was a hearing officer intern for the Bureau of State Hearings. And that year that I was an intern with them, they actually allowed me to do hearings, to write decisions, and submit them to the supervisor for release. So she showed them. She reviewed all of my decisions and gave me pointers or corrections where I needed pointers and corrections. But I was able to actually write and issue decisions on benefit appeals for OWF, Medicaid, and food stamp. Conducted telephonic hearings with litigants. And so that was my first internship. My second internship, or what actually was an internship that I got on with the Franklin County Public Defender's Office in their Common Pleas Division, where they represented all of the felony indicted individuals or defendants. So that was key because I learned how to do motion writing. I learned where in the court you could find where the clerk's office was, where to file your documents, what documents you needed to file, how to review a file for discovery and make demands on discovery and those things. So that was key. And I did that internship from the December of 2001 until after I graduated from law school in May of 2004. So that was my longest internship. Then I had an externship with the Attorney General's office um, under Jim Petro in the civil rights section of the Attorney General's office. And that's where I learned how to do civil discovery. I learned how to do uh, documents preparation, put a case file together. I learned how to write discovery for admissions. I learned how to do interrogatories and prepare cases for litigation. So those were three key um, internships that I had that gave me the practical skills that when I actually graduated from law school, I was able to hang out a shingle and go into my own private practice.
Thank you. Even from all these internship and externships you're talking about, they seem to be like the training school for being a judge, even though you're not even an attorney yet.
But it gave me the footwork for being a judge, especially the one doing at the Bureau of State Hearings, because in doing hearings, I was ruling on objections, I was doing admission of evidence, um, swearing witnesses, taking testimony, and then doing findings of fact and writing decisions. So those are the things that were crucial to me in my development. And I remember being so disappointed because I got the clerkship, went through the minority clerkship program through the Columbus Bar Association. And I remember not being selected for an internship in one of the law firms. And I remember being so horribly disappointed and not getting an internship in the beginning from the minority clerkship program. And I got a call from Donna Sweet at the CBA that said, Terry, do you think that you would be interested in an internship with the Bureau of State Hearings? And she told me what they did. And she said, the person that interviewed you said that you would be perfect for that position. And with my age, with my abilities and what she knew about me, she was 100% right because I took that position, got in there, learned how do to conduct a hearing, how to swear litigants, how to rule on objections, how to do admissions of evidence, and how to take all of that evidence and write a decision, making findings of fact that become the foundation in the case of the law, the law of the case in those cases. So it was those experiences that were the groundwork for being a judge. You are absolutely right.
That was divine. What seems to be the disappointment end up to be the right appointment. And what's pivotal about that story about the minority clerkship program is one of those decisions that I made at that time ends up to be the decision that ends up affecting your life because you are
Yes.
meant to be where you are meant to be.
Yeah, it was disappointing at the time because I felt that I wanted to do labor and employment law because that was my concentration in law school, and I did not get a clerkship in a labor and employment law firm. So I was disappointed, but the path that it took me down definitely gave me the preparation that when I actually became a hearing officer for the state of Ohio in unemployment compensation appeals, I also did that. And while I was in private practice, I did that as an intermittent, which is a part time hearing officer for the state. And I did so that background gave me a leg up when I went in for the interview because I already had experience using the equipment, doing the hearings, knew that you had to get the decisions out in 30 days. So I had that experience. So the experience that I got in those interns and externships uh, was just the groundwork for who I am today.
And what inspired you to start your own practice? What gave you that confidence?
Well, I've always been self employed. So I determined that I was better being self employed than being an employee. So, not a great employee, I guess. Better at molding and creating my own future. And going into private practice gave me the ability to earn what I wanted to earn. And it also gave me the freedom to take the cases I wanted to take. So if I wanted to take a case that the person could not afford it, and I could take that case pro se, it gave me that liberty to be able to offer services to men and women, um, quality legal services that I could offer them, even when they were able to pay or not able to pay. I was able to get on the court appointed list and represent men and women that were indigent and unable to pay, and still be able to give them a quality representation. So I really had a passion for serving men and women and being there for them in court. And I wanted to continue that. And being in your own business gives you the opportunity to decide what cases you take, what cases you don't want to take. And I enjoyed being an entrepreneur, controlling my own hours and working to build a law firm, but also working to build a reputation of being someone that shows up for their client and goes to bat for their client.
And you built that reputation. And in 2012, you took another bold step. You decided to run for judge when most of your contemporaries, were in law school together, when we're not even thinking that. I guess you opened the door for for year 2004, 2005. What prompted you to make that decision to run at that time?
Well, someone asked me if I'd ever thought about it. And I was like, well, no, not really. So, I'm just being honest. I hadn't really thought about it. So I completed the paperwork and I screened for endorsement. They decided they didn't want to endorse in other races. There was one open seat and they didn't want to endorse in other races. So I decided, after much discussion with my husband, that I would run. And I went to the Board of Elections, found out how to run as an independent um, and got on the ballot. And the first challenge was getting enough signatures that were verified voter signatures to get on the ballot. And as I recall, I needed 3,485 valid voter signatures. So I set out and I said, well, if I'm able to get the signatures, then I'll run. So I was able to do that with myself and a few girlfriends, and my husband went around the city and around the county and collected voter signatures to get on the ballot as an independent. And that was a challenge as well, because I was trying to run. um, I thought my petition lined me up to run in the Court of Common Pleas General Division, but my petition lined me up to run in the Court of Common Pleas Domestic Relations and Juvenile Court. So, actually, believe that that was divine intervention that I ended up on the ballot for Domestic Relations Court, because I came to love the work that I was doing in that court.
Look at you once again, trailblazing without trying to.
Yeah, and got elected as an independent.
That was interesting. You didn't tell the story about how you had to go through litigation, end up arguing before the Supreme Court before you were allowed on the ballot.
Yeah, I did. I said I made a mistake on my ballot. I thought I was running for one court and I ended up running for the other. And because my signatures, when I was telling people that I was running, I said I was running for judge in the Court of Common Pleas. I didn't specify general or domestic relations. And it's a good thing I didn't, because the petition is what they go by. And my petition said that I was running for a specific term commencing January the 5th of 2013. But in my mind, I was like, well, I'm running because I want to run in the Court of Common Pleas General Division. And it came down to, did I mislead voters by telling them that I was running for the Court of Common Pleas and thinking that I was running for a different division of that court? And there was a case where someone else had made the exact same error in a different county, and the court had ruled that you must put that person on the ballot. Well, when I went to the Board of Elections, they kept telling me no, that I could not get on the ballot. They felt that I did not complete the petition correctly and that I should not be able to run. But because there was a term that commenced on the date that I had on the petition, and I did say I was running for judge in the Court of Common Pleas, I put everything on there that needed to be there. I signed my petition and everything. And three times I went to the Board of Elections, and every time they told me no. So the last time that I went, I was in an office share at that time that I was working out of, and Richard Klein was the attorney that was in the office next to me. And I was explaining to him how I felt that I was being treated unfairly. I realized that I was trying to run for a different seat, but my petition was correct, and there was a seat that started with a term that started on that date. So Rich went with me to the Board of Elections, and he, explained to them that the petition lined up with the seat, and they still said no. When we got in the car, he said, I don't know what just happened in there. He said, but I'm going to write a writ of mandamus. And being a attorney that had never done mandamus actions or original complaints, I had to ask him, what is that? so, so, for those of you that don't know what a mandamus is, it is an action that you can file to make a government agency perform an act that you are legally and clearly entitled to have. I was legally and clearly entitled to be on the ballot because I had more than enough signatures from valid voters, and I had presented my petition, filed it on time, paid my filing fee. I had done everything that I was required to do. So Rich wrote the writ of mandamus and filed it in the 10th District Court of Appeals, which is the court I coincidentally now sit on. And my panel was Judge Gary Tyack, Judge John Connor presiding, and Judge Susan Brown were on the panel. And we came in and we presented the evidence, and Rich had a case that was directly on point where someone had filed a petition that lined them up to run in domestic relations court when they wanted to run in the general division. And Judge John Connor, the late Judge John Connor, wrote the decision that gave me access to be on the ballot for that seat. Judge Connor passed away maybe a year and a half ago, but I always got to see him, and he would say, "There's my judge. I wrote the decision that put her on the ballot."
Thank you. You had to take the journey through that labyrinth of legal obstacles to get to where you are right now. So nothing was handed to you.
No,
Yes.
nothing
And
was handed to me. And in fact, in that election, I only raised a little over $10,000, and my opponent spent over $100,000. And I still, by the grace, was able to win.
yeah, it was the David and Goliath moment. And you
And
got
that's
on the
what
bench.
they wrote in the paper, that it was a David and Goliath moment.
There we are. And you got on the bench. You still had to prove yourself. And
Still had to prove myself.
you started a compass program in within the court that has helped a lot of people. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Compass came about, and I have to thank my mother for this because my mother was in charge of what was called the Job Incentive Program for the Department of Welfare. And that program, um, they brought men and women in that were receiving benefits and gave them education and training so they could get off welfare. And as I would sit there on the bench and I would see men and women come through the court owing child support, unemployed, underemployed, not having GEDs, not having literacy skills, not having any of the skills that they needed to get a job. And I would watch them come through, and we would, I would hear them say, I'm unemployed, I don't have the ability to pay. If I had it, I'd pay. So one day I was sitting there, and there was an action that came through where the individual had a civil case pending, and child support was trying to put a lien or a garnishment on that civil case. And I remember the attorney was the late Otto Beatty Jr. And he and child support came to the court, and we were talking about how we could make this work. And out of that conversation with the director of child support, in Mr. Beatty's case, um, I began to talk to her about let's do a program through the court where these men and women that owe child support, we can link them with the services that they need so that they can become gainfully employed. So Susan Brown's the executive director of child support enforcement. And we kind of just put our heads together and said, let's bring people into the courtroom. Let's bring the community service providers to the court. So we started bringing Jewish Family Services, um, Impact, the Urban League, Godman Guild, even some of our local unions, local one, I think it's local, one of the iron workers, local down on South High Street. They came. Just bought the Bureau of Motor Vehicles to see what we could do about their driver's license. So once a month on the last Thursday of the month, we bring all of those providers to the court, bring the unemployed individuals, let them hear the different services that were available, link them to the services right there so they didn't have to go and look for them after court, and actually set that up right there in the court. I had an intern from OSU uh, that was in grad school for social work. um, Kendall was my first intern. She was very instrumental in helping put um, the handbook together. I had my bailiff, Joe Sappho, my staff attorney, Benita Ritas, my judicial assistant, Jennifer Gibson. The three of them and Kendall really worked with that program to get it up and running. So in 2014, in July of 2014, so that's been 8 years, 8 years ago, we started the Compass program. We got coverage from the Columbus Dispatch, we got coverage from Channel 10 News to let people know that there is a better way. If we don't get men and women employed, they can't provide for themselves, they can't provide for their children. And this was just a way that I could give back to the community, make sure that men and women were paying their child support, and saving taxpayers dollars by not incarcerating them. In Franklin County, it costs almost $90 a day to incarcerate someone. You put them in jail for 30 days, you just spent $2,700 of taxpayer dollars. They come back out and they still have no employment to be able to pay their child support.
And it was a successful program. And after your re-election to the bench, the Court of Domestic Court, after 2 years, you decided to move up the ladder to the current court.
I didn't really decide. this
The
this
people decided.
The people decided, and I was asked to run for this seat um, at a time that I was like, I just ran an election. I'm not really trying to run an election. And I was given this opportunity, and it has been a blessing to be here. The Court of Appeals is different from a trial court because you sit with two other judges and you help to shape law. Being here has given me the ability to impact decisions by bringing my knowledge of domestic and juvenile, bringing my knowledge of child support, bringing my knowledge of having tried criminal cases as a lawyer, trying probate cases, domestic cases. So I bring, and I'm the only judge currently here that's ever done domestic and juvenile law as a practice. So bringing that knowledge here and being able to be conferencing in conference with the other two judges to talk about um, how these rulings and decisions impact individuals and impact litigants that are coming before us. And I have the administrative practice background as well that I bring to the court. So
Your unique skill.
in 2020, in the middle of a pandemic, I ran for election and won.
Wow, you're a unicorn. And you've also been serving as an adjunct professor at two universities.
Well, I haven't actually been. I passed the training for Franklin. I have not actually taught there, but I did teach at DeVry, not DeVry,
Dama
Daymar,
College.
Daymar College.
Dama
I
College.
taught business law at Daymar College, and I taught interviewing and counseling at Cap Law School. Also during the pandemic, not a good time to learn how to run their system, not a good time. Uh, I felt that I did not give those students. I was like, the students are helping me learn how to do uh, the computer system that they were using. That was a challenge. That was a challenge.
Yes.
But
And
I
you're,
liked it.
you're good.
I said I liked it. I don't know how much they liked me because I was learning on the job.
We live and learn. And you're currently seeking a seat on the Supreme Court of Ohio.
Yes, among all the other things that I'm doing, because I am on the board of counselors at Capital Law School, and I'm on the board at Franklin University for Global Healthcare Education. So I bring that skill set as well, serving on those boards and helping to direct where the university's vision goes. Um, I am seeking a seat on the Ohio Supreme Court because I believe that democracy needs to be protected in the state of Ohio. We've seen this year the importance that the Ohio Supreme Court has played in determining whether or not the redistricting maps were constitutional. We've seen that the Dobbs decision in the U.S. Supreme Court is pushing rights and the interpretation of those rights back to the state courts. We've seen voting rights cases coming out of the Ohio Supreme Court as well. And I do believe that my unique set of skills allows me to go there. Having been a member of two unions, have been a hearing officer for two different state agencies, one as an intern, one as an intermittent hearing officer, having been a trial practice attorney that actually went into the courtrooms and stood before a jury and represented individuals, having been a trial judge that understands the importance litigation has for each person that's coming before the court, and having been an appellate judge here, able to do error correction and issue decisions that impact the entirety of Franklin County. And in some jurisdiction, we have over the state of Ohio Court of Claims Appeals, where we can also do error correction, and also over mandamus actions for the Bureau of Workers' Comp throughout the state. We are the only jurisdiction here in the 10th district that has that jurisdiction as well. I bring all of these skills, and I want to protect democracy and make sure that equal opportunity and access to the court is given to all, so that equal justice under the law can be a reality for all Ohioans.
Thank you. And what has it been like for you traveling across the state to spread
It
your
has
message?
been a glorious experience. I have been in Ohio since 1983. So, for all intents and purposes, I am an Ohioan. But getting around the state has shown me that I don't know as much about the state as I should. So, I've had the opportunity to travel almost all 88 of the counties up to this point. I was in Allen County and Logan County, and I've been to Mercer County and Monroe County, Belmont County, some of the counties that are on the far fringes away from Columbus and Franklin County. Been as far south as um, Sauter County and Clermont County. Um, my grandmother lived in Gallipolis, which is down in Gallia County. I've been represented individuals in cases down in Lawrence County, but some of the counties I hadn't been to. So I'm learning so much about the state and how beautiful the state is and what it has to offer. And I'm just grateful for this opportunity to possibly be only the fifth minority judge to sit on the court out of 162 justices.
Thank you. And what is your unique message to the people of Ohio and how important is having you on the Supreme Court?
Well, my unique message is this: I come as an independent voice to review cases and to ensure that you have equal justice. If your case comes before the Supreme Court, you don't want someone that has a predetermined view writing that decision. And you don't want someone that's in the pocket of special interest and um, those special interest groups that are not in the working class. You want someone that's like you. You want someone that has worked their way up, has put their time in, and is still eager to make sure that equal justice is done, that everyone is treated with dignity and with respect, that everyone's voice is heard, and that you have the opportunity to get before the court. Unlike the Court of Appeals, unlike a trial court, when you file an action in the Supreme Court, if you don't have four justices to vote for your case to even be heard, you don't even get to have an opportunity for the Supreme Court to take jurisdiction over your case. Has to be at least four justices. I want to be that fourth vote. Our Chief Justice has to retire this year because she's aging out. Here in Ohio, you cannot run for election if you're going to be 70 years old before your term starts. And so Chief Justice O'Connor has to retire this year. I'd like to be that fourth vote that says these cases are great public interest. These cases involve constitutional questions. These cases involve the discipline of lawyers. I want to be the fourth vote that determines what happens in these cases.
Thank you. The people of Ohio, you've heard from Judge Terry Jamison. This is a woman who walked her way up. Literally, she started from the bowels of the earth, on the ground, working as a coal miner. Then she moved her way up to becoming working in an insurance agent's office. Then she moved up to getting her own license. Then she moved up to building her own insurance agency. Then she moved parallel. She went to law school and college while doing that, working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Then she started from scratch too as an attorney, working as an intern and as a public defender, working as a hearing officer. Then she started her own practice defending indigent clients. Then she worked her way up to becoming a judge, fought tooth and nail to get on the ballot. Then she won the seat. Then she was recruited to get on this bench. And then she's now seeking to be that fourth vote on the U.S. Supreme Court. She's someone that
Ohio Supreme
on the
Court.
Ohio Supreme Court.
We're going to let Ketanji Brown Jackson keep her judgeship.
Exactly. So if you're looking
And
for that
that
person,
was a great moment this year
yeah,
to
it
see
is.
the first Black woman take her seat and be sworn in to the U.S. Supreme Court. And running this year with two other dynamic women for the Ohio Supreme Court, running with my mentor, Justice Jennifer Bruner, and running with Judge Marilyn Zayas. And we've coined a thought. We are sisters, quote, in law, unquote. And we have been working together as a team because we know how critical the Supreme Court is when it comes to redistricting and gerrymandering of districts. Will be back on the ballot in 2024. We know that we've had the Dobbs decision that comes down, and that Roe versus Wade was overturned as law this year, and those decisions are being pushed down to the state courts as well. We know that one of the decisions written took out one leg of the Voting Rights Act. So voting rights are going to be pushed back down to the state. We're in a critical moment where who you put on the court, who you vote for in 22, is going to be the person that's there when redistricting comes back up. And if there's an objection filed to the redistricting maps, who do you want on the court to vote for your interests? And this is the time that you have to decide that issue.
Thank you. And you've been spending the last hour answering questions and talking to the people of Ohio and the people of Franklin County and the audience of this show. Can you tell us what it means for you to come on this show to talk to the people of Ohio?
Well, Emmanuel, I'm a grassroots person. I believe that our public, our voting public, needs to know more about the justices and the judges that are on the ballot. And the reason you need to know more is because you're more likely to have an interaction with a judge than any other elected office. Whether it's a speeding ticket, a divorce, a child custody, child support, domestic violence, whatever it is, you might even be a victim of a crime. But whatever it is, you're more likely to have an interaction with a judge. And I believe that Emmanuel is giving us a platform where we can speak to you and give you information. And that's what I love about Emmanuel. He's like I am. We're all about giving information and education so that the public knows where you can go to find information and what happens when you go to court. And I know he's had several lawyers and judges, and that's the world that we live in, the legal world. And you don't live in that world. And you need people like Emmanuel that sponsors this program to allow you to have the opportunity to hear from judges, from lawyers, from social workers, from people that provide services that you might need. So I'm glad that Emmanuel has made this platform available to us so that we can speak to you today.
Oh, thank you for coming on this show. It's been wonderful catching up with you again and talking about your life journey from the coal mines to possible Ohio Supreme Court justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for those of you watching us or listening to this as a podcast, thank you for your time. Until next time, stay safe and remain blessed. Bye for now.